Baruch Hashem, thank you Hashem for giving me another opportunity to get together with all of you to learn Rebbe Nachman's and Reb Noson's important works. It's a privilege to be able to do this. And I welcome you back. Welcome back, Pamela. Good to see everybody. And Yaya too, welcome. Baruch Hashem. Wonderful. Thank you for letting me know that you can hear me fine, Uncle. I always wonder if everybody can hear me. You know, in person, you get that feedback, the dynamic back and forth, but online, it's not exactly the same. Maybe sometimes it's better for someone giving a shiur or whatever to not see the feedback, because then if people are sleeping, it could be a little bit demotivated. But God forbid anybody here is sleeping. That wasn't my intent, my implication. But Baruch Hashem, I'm glad to be back. Thank God. I'm grateful to Kadosh Baruch Hu for giving me an opportunity to share with you, to learn with you. And tonight we're going to be continuing where we left off last week. Last week was a makeup, and from what I understand, there was no email that went out. I apologize for that. But the previous year should be on the Breslov campus website, which means that you can listen to it, because the material that was covered last week is associated and related to what we've been learning, but independent. So at any given point, you want to go back and listen to it. If you didn't have a chance to join us live, please feel free to do so, because I think that it would, I was going to say, it answers a lot of questions and it fills in a lot of blanks in our Yiddishkeit, why we do certain things, etc. But we're going to continue tonight where we left off from last week. Hashem. And Reb Noson says, right up at top, Sif Ches, V'zeh b'chinas matnos kahuna. This is the idea of the matnos kahuna, the gifts that we give to Kohanim, trumos u'maisros, truma and meiser. So when somebody has a field and they harvest, they have to give certain tithes to the Kohanim. Those tithes are called truma. And they also have to give certain tithes to Levium. Those tithes are called meiser. Truma, it could be anywhere between 40 and 60, a 40th and a 60th. And meiser comes from the word eser, which means 10, which is, it has to be exactly a tenth of the yield of the amount that you have. So really, a person could be yotze truma with any amount. The suggested amount is between a 40th and a 60th. A 40th if you're more giving, and a 60th if you're a little less giving, or anywhere in between. But really, you could be yotze with any amount, even a small amount. But meiser has to be a tenth. So that's just a little background on truma. Truma means to elevate, and we're elevating our produce. Now, what's really exciting about what we're going to learn tonight is that everyone knows that it's called truma, and that's called an elevation. But why is it an elevation? What's going on that we call it truma, elevation? So we're going to talk about that tonight. And it's unbelievably in sync and associated with our lesson that we've been learning about as we go through and see. Unbelievable, unbelievable. In order, we give these trumos and maestros, we give these tithes to the Kohanim and the Levium in order to take out the produce, the grain, from a status of klala, of curse. Now you'll say, what do you mean a curse? Because the land was cursed when Adam Arishon and Chava sinned. So the basic starting point of a lot of things in this world come from not necessarily at this stage in the game a source of blessing. It does come from a source of curse at this stage in the game. So what we want to do is we want to be able to, and this is where Reb Noson's lessons are so incredibly applicable and relevant to everyday life. We're going to try to come up with or to apply the tools that Reb Noson presents in a way that takes our existence from one state, meaning a state of klala, of curse, into a state of bracha, a state of blessing. And he's saying right off the bat that when we have produce, when we have grain that we harvest, we give these maasros and trumos, we give these tithes in order to elevate, in order to remove them from the status of curse. Now, how does that happen? Because we give it to the Kohen. Who's the Kohen? A Kohen is someone, as we've said before. Now it's starting to all come together, all of these ideas, that a Kohen is someone who's able to reach up into the sealed part of the highest spheros, the highest spiritual levels that are sealed. We said that the highest level of the spheros is Keser, the associated Nakuda, vowel point that's associated with Keser is the Kamatz, and a Kamatz means sealed, closed off. It's a closed book. And that's what the Kohanim do. When they close their hand, they're performing a Kamitza. Kamatz is the name of the vowel, and Kamitza is the action by which they close off their finger. They put the flour right inside this part of the hand. They square it off at the bottom. They square it off at the top with their thumb. And this little bit that's inside this space right here, that's the kamitza. But kamatz means sealed. It means closed. The Kohen is grabbing some of or taking some of the flour, and he's closing his hand on it. So you see that Kohanim have the ability to grab that which is otherwise closed and sealed. And Kohanim are associated with the next sphere after Keser, the next one down, which is Chachma. And Chachma, the associated vowel, this is unbelievable. The associated vowel for Chachma is a patach. Patach means to open, to make something accessible, to make it relevant, to be able to give people a connection to it. So the Kohen, the Kohanim, their sphera that they're associated with is Chachma, and the process that they're doing is taking that which was sealed and opening it and making it accessible. That the Kohen is able to go up very high and pull down that light from above. Remember, we said we want to pull it down before it has a chance to take form down here, because our kelim, our vessels, may not be in the most pristine state that we want them to. And if a tremendous influx of bracha comes down into impure vessels, what that does is it actually can turn, God forbid, the bracha into something that's not favorable. So what we want to do is we want to be able to grab that bracha in an already formatted state. That's what we're describing here. So the Kohen has the ability to grab it and bring it down. And he's grabbing that which is sealed and closed and sealed, and to format it into a bracha. Now, the reason why, just in case anybody ever wonders, and I'll probably say it again at some point, the reason why I have the text up here, and the reason why I'm taking pains to read it carefully, is because my main goal is not to tell you what Elio Hecht thinks about any particular thing, but rather to give you access to Reb Noson, so that you could go back and you can learn it, and you can learn what the words mean, but you also know how they're related to everything that we're learning to the best of my ability. And that's why I'm presenting it this way, rather than just an amorphous lecture of some sort. But the Kohen has the job, has the right, has the capacity to reach up high and pull down that which was inaccessible. And this is the idea of giving truma to the Kohen and meiser to the Levi. Because a Kohen, as I explained, has the ability, through his ability to do kamitza, demonstrates that the Kohen has that ability, that spiritual ability, to go beyond what would normally be accessible to a human being. And that is, he can wrap his being around the Or HaPashut, the straight light, meaning the light that has not yet veered to the left or the right. He can have access to that kind of light. Shehu comes, and that's what the title of this series was called, about getting the light and hanging on to it and knowing what to do with it. Shehu comes to us, and this light is so pure and so pristine and so not this worldly, to not yet be differentiated into one side or another. Everything in this world either takes on an element of good or bad. It's a binary world in a very big sense. But this light isn't that way. This light is an absolute. It's an absolute. And it depends on the receiver to decide whether that light is going to be good, bad, or otherwise. So now the Kohen has access to this light. Now comes into action the next stage of the game. Because after you give, and the order of giving the Trumas and Maasros is first you're supposed to give Truma to the Kohen. The Mishnayos and the Gemara talk about, well, what if somebody does it out of order? That's a separate discussion for another time. But the point is, the way it's supposed to be done is first the Kohen gets his Truma. Then the next participant in this purification process of worldliness into godliness is the Levi. And the Levi, his or their associated sphera is Bina, Chachma Bina. Levi is Bina, and the associated Nakuda with Bina is the Tseire. And the word Tseire means something also unbelievably. You would never know this unless you were learning this. The Tseire comes from the word, the etymology, the word Litzayer, to form. Sometimes it could mean to illustrate, to demonstrate maybe, but it means to form something into a form. Ki, Kohen, Levi, Yisrael, all three, and Yisrael is Das. Kohen, Levi, Yisrael. Hein bechinas Chachma is Chachma. Bina, Das. Oh, he says it. I should just read it. Keep my mouth quiet. Nimsa, it turns out, Levi hu bechinas Bina. That Levi is the notion of Bina. Shu bechinas Tseire, which is a Tseire. What's his job? What's the Levi's job? The Levi's job is to format that which was previously inaccessible and then made accessible by the Kohen who has that ability, and now he hands off, so to speak, this spiritual purification process to the Levi, who then has the ability to really format it into something wonderful. Now, Kain nosim truma leKohen, and therefore you give truma to the Kohen, kedei laharim hatvua, in order to elevate the tvua, the produce, to elevate that produce, because previously it was in a very magushim state. It was a state of klala, of curse, and it also was only or primarily physical at that point. What we want to do is we want to be able to derive spiritual benefit as well from the produce. We don't want to eat to fill our bellies. We want to eat to fill our bellies and our soul, or rather, we want to eat to fill our soul and consequently our bellies. So then, in order to elevate the produce to its source, shu or pashut, which comes from an or pashut, because tavua is a baracha. Tavua comes from the highest level, the ability to create, to have access to food from which we nourish our bodies and our souls. And how this works is part of Hashem's master plan of creating the world. It comes from his or pasha. And it comes from the highest levels. And as a result of this, it gets extracted from a status of klala, of curse, and after it's returned to its source, meaning of a high spiritual level, shuhu or pasha, which is the or pasha, the straight light. And after that, then you give ma'aser to the Levi, which is the formatting stage, in order to be able to format the light and the shefa, the flow of blessing, in order to format that litova, for good, and that it should be for a blessing. Now, a long time ago, my wife had the zechus of going and hearing a speaker who had a mission of educating and familiarizing women with the idea of making challah before Shabbos. In fact, she used to say, or she does say, women, buy your dessert, but make your challah. Now, when I heard that, I said, well, nice idea, but I didn't really connect to that message. Although, Baruch Hashem, my wife has been making challah ever since, and we're very proud of her and the happy recipients of her handiwork. However, I never really understood why that was the case. Why was it important for a woman, especially a woman, but why is it important that challah be made in the home? And here we're going to discuss that tonight. This is the idea of giving challah to the Kohen. Now, challah is what a person gives to the Kohen after they make a dough out of the flour. So first we have the trumas and maestros that are given, and that's given from the raw grain. And then after it's milled and after it's made into flour and after it's made into a dough, then part of that dough is separated as an additional matana to the Kohen, an additional gift to the Kohen, and it's called challah. Challah means bread. But in this instance, challah means the mitzvah of hafrashas challah, of separating challah and giving that piece to the Kohen. So why is that such a big mitzvah? Zeh bechinas challah lekohen. This is the idea of giving challah to the Kohen. Shenosim achar kach lekohen min ha'isa, that we give to the Kohen afterwards from the dough. Ki achar kach shekishenasa isa, because afterwards, in other words, after the process of harvest, of growing, harvesting, grinding, all of the different stages of preparing the flour. After all of this is said and done, we're making a dough out of this. That's where we're going with all of this. And then the flour, the dough starts to take form and become chametz. So imagine you make a dough, you knead it and you mix it and knead it and everything else, and you let it sit for a little while. And what happens? It starts to rise. It starts to turn into chametz. Okay, therefore, but that's a critical moment. We're going to discuss it. Okay, therefore, tzrichin litain shenis matana lekohen. You need to give an additional matana to the Kohen at that critical juncture. Why? The hainu challah, not why, as I said, next part of the sentence, but we're going to answer the question as to why. The hainu challah, that this is a challah, shehi gam kin truma, which is also a type of a truma, very much so, because you're elevating it and you're also giving it to the Kohen. Kedei laharim od hapam, in order to elevate once again an additional time, es ha'isa, the dough, l'sharsha, to its source. The bechinas v'kamatz ha'kohen is with the same sexual mechanisms as we spoke about before, with the Kohen having access to that which was sealed, in order that the light, the spiritual light that's contained within this isa, within this dough, should be levracha. Now Reb Noson is going to explain why it's so important to give the challah, to do the hafrashas challah at this critical juncture. Ki ba'es shenasa isa, because at the moment that you make a dough, yuchal hasitra achra lachazor ulis orachas v'shalom. It's possible for the sitra achra, the negative spiritual forces, lachazor, to return ulis orachas v'shalom, and to become activated, God forbid, because there's something going on that attracts them. They see potential. They see that there's new material. It's like a new stock offering. Everybody wants to pounce on it. Well, guess what? The good guys want to pounce, and the bad guys want to pounce also. So we know that whenever something like this is going on, and this is big, this is a big thing. This is you are making it, and you have the capacity to sustain life with this bread. This is a big deal, making bread. At that moment that dough is starting to rise, The sitra, all of the spiritual forces, but including the bad ones, they're going for it. They want a piece of the action. And not only that, but dough when it rises is a concept of chametz, of leaven, usaor and leaven. And their grass, in other words, when does something become chametz? When does the saor, when does the yeast, the leaven, start to really take effect? That's when everything's already mixed into the dough. You know, we have a bread machine here at home, and once in a while we like to make bread. So we want to set it up so that you have the bread later in the night, or later the next day or later day. You put in the wet ingredients, the water, the oil, etc. You put the flour on top, and you put the yeast on top of that, and then let it sit, and then whenever it turns on, it goes. But why is that okay? The reason why it's okay is obvious, because even though the yeast is in contact with the flour, without the water being mixed in as part of it, it's not going to start a reaction. It's not going to start a chemical reaction. It's not going to be activated. It's only when everything is mixed together, when you have the water, the flour, and the leavening agent, the yeast, all mixed together into an isa, that's when the magic starts to happen. Unfortunately, that's when also we attract, at that moment, the sitra achra, the negative spiritual forces that also want to exploit the situation. And that's why they're coming specifically now. The ace shanasa is at the time when you're making the dough. Ki az ikar hatzir shel hashefa shabal mamala, because that's when the main formatting of the shefa, of the positive spiritual flow that's coming from above, starts to take form. Is at that moment. Ki kol zman shelo nasa mahatvua isa, because as long as you have not yet made a dough, adayin lo nigmar ma'alasa, you have not yet completed its true benefit. So in other words, the true benefit of harvesting grain and going through all the different processes is to get it to the point where you're making a dough, where you can actually create the bread and enjoy eating it and benefit from it. As long as that hasn't happened yet, you're not there yet. You haven't finished. None of us would like to go out to the field and just have a couple of stalks of grain for dinner. We want to make something. We want to make a bread from it. The ikar hagmar, the eish shanasa pas, and the main completion of the whole process is when you make bread. So that's when you're rolling and kneading the dough. Now, Cain, and therefore, az ikar hisarusam shah sitra achra. Therefore, that's when the main, activation of the sitra achra comes into play. Let me just change the slide. Okay, thank you. It's a little smaller. And that's why they're picking that moment to come, because that is the pivotal moment where it's the transition between something that's not that functional and valuable for the maintenance and sustenance of a human being. But when I make that dough and it starts to become bread and it starts to rise and it starts to form into a bread, that's when it's already starting to become something very, very valuable. That's what's attracting these forces. Chas v'shalom. And what they want to do is they want to come in at that critical juncture of transition, and they want to be able to direct it to the wrong place. The alkane, and therefore, az misora chametz u'seor, the chametz and the seor, the leavening, is awakened. It's activated. Shem bechinas sior, bechinas simane chametz karne chagav. And this is we mentioned this before, that the sign that something is becoming chametz, meaning that it's rising, is when it starts getting those little cracks and fissures in it. that the Chachamim describe as karnei chagavim, which are antennae of grasshoppers. Shazel b'chinas siyur ha'or ki yidua l'mevid. So this is when the, spiritually speaking, the light is coming into the world at that moment, and that on that item, and is taking, as the bread is rising and taking form, that's when that spiritual light is coming in and also starting to take form. And now it's very dangerous because that light can go one of two ways. Now, Cain, therefore, anu chozrin v'nosnin matnos kahuna. Therefore, we once again give gifts to the Kohanim, not just gifts like happy birthday gifts. I mean, we're elevating something in an amazingly significant spiritual way. The Hainu Chala Kohen, which is Chala to the Kohen, Kedei Laharim HaKol L'Shorsho, in order to return everything to its root, V'chinas V'kamatz HaKohen, which is done through the ability of the Kohen to reach beyond this world and grab which was otherwise hidden way up in the spiritual realms. In order that through this, the light will come down to below, and it will be formatted into a blessing. Because Kohanim have the ability to grab that light and draw it down from above, and format it into a blessing. Of course, also with the Levium. And this was the idea that we mentioned in previous sessions, where we talked about the Birkas Kohanim, that the Kohanim are the ones who have the ability to elevate, to give the bracha. They have access to being able to turn things around and bestow blessing on the world because of their access. That's what we're saying. And this is what's written by Chala, in order to place a bracha on your house. So when I learned all of this, it says lahaniach bracha daika, to place a blessing specifically, meaning that he's going to explain in a little bit the idea of making brachas, which is also an unbelievable, incredible application of what we're learning. But when I learned up to this point, to place a blessing on your home, I thought of that woman who gave that lecture and that demonstration to my wife. And I thought to myself, wow, now I understand on a much, much higher level and a much more meaningful level, even more meaningful than my previous understanding, that when a person is making challah, a woman, especially a woman, because she can be the source of that bracha into the home, that when she is making the challah, and she also a man, but this woman was promoting that the women do it. It happens to be a very special mitzvah and bracha for women to do, but this is what they're doing. They're actually giving this matnas kahuna in order to be mamshich bracha into their homes. And if a woman were to make challah with this kind of kavana, with this kind of intent, then for sure she would be in the right spiritual mind frame to take advantage of the shefa of the Or Pashut into her home and into her life and her family's life. Reb Noson continues, lahaniach bracha daika, and it talks about placing a blessing, a bracha. It uses that word, the pasuk says very specifically. This is what we talk about this is the idea of making a bracha in the beginning and at the end. Now, before I translate this sentence, I guarantee, unless you've learned this from Reb Noson, you never heard this in your life. And that is, why do we say brachos? So the Gemara says, we make brachos because really everything in the world belongs to Hashem. And we don't have a right to take it until we praise and thank the one who provided it, which is a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and then we're able to partake. And the bracha achana that we make, the pasuk talks about Shnei Hululim, 2 types of praises, and it goes through that explanation. And that is absolutely 100% emes and true, etc. But here, Reb Noson is going to give us a little bit more color, a little bit more personal application to the idea of why we make brachos. So he says, this is the idea when we make a bracha in the beginning, before we eat something, and at the end, after we've eaten something. Why? Make a bracha on everything. We do this in order that everything should be formatted into light. We should format the light and the shefa, and the flow of blessing, the spiritual flow of blessing, shuhachias, which sustains life, which gives life into that thing, that we're benefiting from, in order that it should be formatted into bracha. And therefore, you need to make a bracha at the beginning and at the end. Why? Because in the very beginning, you need to make a blessing. Kodem ha'achila, prior to the eating, in order that we should be able to format that light from above. So in other words, there are going to be 2 different parts of the process. The first part is that original bracha. What we want to do is we want whatever we're about to consume to be beneficial for us, not just physically for sure, but also 100% spiritually want it to be a bracha and to be beneficial for us. So we're making that original bracha in order so that the food we're about to consume can function in that greatest capacity. So I was thinking when I was reviewing this before, when I was learning it and reviewing it, that a lot of us are used to saying brachos, and really, at the time that we are saying a bracha, we really have in mind that we want to be enjoying the item that we're saying for the bracha on, whether it's a drink, or whether it's an item of food, whatever it is. And our minds are on the food. So a lot of times I feel that it could be, possibly, I'm not speaking about anybody in particular, that having to make a bracha could be conceived of, and I thought of this in a kind of like in a funny kind of way, as a spiritual speed bump. In other words, I have to say the bracha. I'm not going to eat without saying the bracha, but by the same token, my mind is not on the bracha. It's only because I'm being forced to slow down to say the bracha that I'm saying the bracha altogether. But really, my desire is to enjoy or to partake of what I'm saying the bracha on. And now we're learning in a totally different conceptual, spiritual application of the notion of brachos. Because what we're saying is that your bracha, when you make it, not only permits the food to you to be eaten, and you're not only fulfilling a mitzvah by saying the bracha, but you're also energizing the food or the item that you're about to benefit from. You're giving it the power to do what ultimately you want it to do. And that's because when you say your bracha, you are identifying, I used the word before, activating that spiritual component in that item that you're about to enjoy. That's the life of that thing. That it should be, that now you're formatting that component into a bracha. And afterwards, after you're done eating, that the spirituality of the food has spread to the mochin. Now, what's the mochin? So some may be familiar, some may not, and just in case somebody's not, The mochin are referred to as the three top spheros, Keser, Chachma, and Bina. Mochin means intellect, mind, mentalities, as the BRI Sfarim translated. So it's really the highest level of spirituality that we can aspire to. So when the food comes in and it has its spiritual impact, ultimately it's going to be affecting the mochin, the highest levels. V'nitosef lo chochma v'das, and it's going to be increasing a person's ability to function in the realm of chachma, with chachma and with das, to have access to those spheros, to be able to harness the potential of what they have to offer. Now, the top three spheres are Keser, Chachma, and Bina. And since Keser, as we said, was closed and sealed, and we always have to have 10 spheros, what we do is we have a quasi-sphera, which is Das. So counting down from Chachma being the highest, we would say Chachma, Bina, and Das. So Das would be the confluence and the best that Chachma and Bina have to offer, all mixed into one, which is Das. So that's why he's saying here, Chachma v'das, achila, through our eating. The process of eating is not to fill our bellies only. It's to create spiritual energy that will nourish the mochin, the highest levels. And each person's ability to eat and for that food to nourish the mochin, right, those highest spiritual levels, each person's ability for that process to happen is dependent on their kli, on their spiritual kelim, the purity, the wholesomeness, the completeness of their kelim. Ki eitzel hatzadik mitosef chachma v'das al yidei ha'achila. Because when it comes to tzaddikim, when they eat, for sure, they're eating to provide probably almost exclusively. Can't be all exclusively, because they also need to benefit and derive nourishment for their physicality in this world. But the tzaddikim are eating with practically as much focus as they can on benefiting their spiritual well-being and adding to their chachma and das. You know, like we mentioned like certain foods we call brain food. So here, food in general is spiritual food. It has potential spiritual nourishing food. Well, the hefech, and the opposite is true, eitzel harasha, with regard to a wicked person. Yutosef ksilos. What does his benefit, how does his benefit manifest from eating food? It increases his foolishness. Now he's got a lot of energy, and he's used to doing silly things with his time and energy. So as a result of that, the food that he's eating is only compounding his negative behavior. Al yedei ha'achila, through the eating, and even though shishnehem ochlim b'kara achas, they're both eating from the same bowl. Fascinating concept. The next time you sit down to have a meal, think to yourself, okay, I'm sitting now with somebody else, imaginary person, and that other person is eating from the same plate, the same bowl of food that I'm eating from. And which person am I? The other person is the exact polar opposite of where you're at. So you're eating the same food that he or she is eating opposite you. One person has the ability to take the food that they're ingesting and for that food to be a magnificent, wonderful powerhouse of spiritual enhancement in their lives. And the other person is just eating so that they can continue doing whatever it is they want to do, and oftentimes not the right thing. So it's interesting to think of it that way. And the way that the food that we ingest has the ability to affect our spiritual component is based on the whole, as we said before, the completeness of our spiritual canon. Because everything is according to the kli. It's not the food. The food could go either way. The food is like the word pashut that we said. But when it comes to the ingesting part, now it's up to the person. What are they going to do with this? Because food gets formatted and gets utilized by whoever ingests it. And ingesting it meaning the kli that receives it. According to the, literally means the grasp of his mochin, the tova lahafach, whether it's going to be, that will decide, that will be the determinant whether this food is good or the opposite. Now, Cain, and therefore, after the eating, az maschil hamachal is barer, that's when the food starts to go through the digestive process. So the food not only goes through a physical digestive process, but as it's going through the physical digestive process, it's also being digested spiritually. It's being decided which way this food is going. It's being called out, C-U-L-L-D. It's being called out and directed in one direction or another. The nimshach hatov va'amucha, and the best of the best, the chosenness, is being drawn el hamoach, to the highest spiritual level, the mochin, the mentalities, the mitzvah sham, the mocha, and it's going to take form that there in his moach, in his brain, in his spiritual brain, that it's going to be formed according to the extent of his tikkun hakli, to the extent that a person is, now, let me finish the sentence, then I'll add what I wanted to say. The extent that a person's kelim are whole, that's the extent that the food will be beneficial for him. Now, again, no matter where a person is, just being aware of this lesson, don't be too critical of yourself, just be aware and allow yourself the benefit of growing with this concept. Because no matter where you are, there's always a lot to grow and a lot to be able to benefit from. So God forbid anybody should hear this and say, well, what can he do or what can she do? No, that's not the point of all this. The point of all of this is to just say, okay, time to start being more spiritually aware, even as we're eating, even as we're saying our brachos. Eating is a physical activity, but it's also very, very much a spiritual activity. Being aware of that will go very, very far as advancing a person to the point where he's much more conscious than he previously was, as far as what he's eating, why he's eating, and what he wants that food to accomplish. So that's the goal. Okay, therefore, you need to make a blessing after the eating, in order that light that you've now just ingested should be formatted into a bracha. At that critical juncture, just like we saw with the Isa, at that critical juncture, after a person's consumed the food, right, and it's starting to undergo transformation within him, it's at that moment that the mochin are going to start being affected by it, and it's at that moment that we make another bracha. So we make a bracha first before we eat something so that it should be beneficial. And we make a bracha after we're eating because that's when it really gets to work. That's when things are really starting to happen. Exactly at the moment that you're drawing the lifeblood out of the food, el hamoach, into your moach, into your mind, into your spiritual mind, which is through your kli. And this is the idea of when we say the birkas hamazon, which is the blessing after we eat bread, the blessing after meals, after we eat bread, birchas hamazon, v'zehu b'chinas birchas hatova hametiv she'omim b'birchas hamazon, and this is the bracha hatova hametiv that we say as part of the blessing of the benching of the birchas hamazon. V'omim shalosh hatavos, and we're saying the three goodnesses. Why are we saying the three goodnesses? In order that the light should be formatted into goodness and bracha, into blessing. So what are the three goodnesses? So if you're familiar with the benching, you'll know that we say hu heitiv, hu nativ, hu yetiv lanu. So what does that mean? First of all, I'm saying the word tov 3 times, but they mean different things grammatically. Hu heitiv, he did, meaning HaKadosh Baruch Hu did good to us. Hu meitiv, he is doing good with us, present tense. Hu yetiv lanu, he will do good with us. So Reb Noson is telling us the reason why we say hu heitiv, past tense, hu meitiv, he's doing good, and hu yetiv, he will do good. The reason why we say that in benching is because this is the process of what's going on when we eat food. The first thing is hu heitiv, he did good. He gave us the food. Fine, I have it in front of me. Hu meitiv, he's doing good by our consumption. Hu yetiv lanu, and now that it's consumed, and now it's really being super activated and digested, and it's going where it needs to go physically and spiritually. Hu yetiv lanu, he's going to do good to us. So this is the idea. Oh Hashem. There's other reasons why we say the bracha of hu heitiv, meitiv, yetiv lanu, but this is Reb Noson's explanation, and it's really powerful and beautiful. Okay, a little bit more for tonight. I hope that anybody listening to this that it's having the same effect on you that it had on me, and that is that an appreciation for the mechanics of our Judaism. So yes, we do a lot of things, and we're going to do them because they're mitzvahs and the Torah tells us to, but to appreciate the mechanics of why we do what we do, and to be able to connect to it on an intrinsic, on a deep, deep spiritual level is unbelievable. So whether we're talking about the mitzvah of haprashas challah, or giving trumas and maasros, or we're talking about now about saying a bracha before we eat, after we eat, and now benching, it almost feels like there's practically no area of Yiddishkeit that this concept, that this principle that Rebbe Nachman taught us is not applicable. I mean, that it applies practically to everywhere. And I said to my son earlier tonight that I may mention this during this year, that Rebbe Zal's messages and lessons talk to everybody that learns them. And the reason why they do is because they're not like divrei Torah or drushos that are interesting or even important in that sense. They're principles. What Rebbe Nachman did is he identified core spiritual principles that are applicable to every person at one point or another, or even at all points. And then what Reb Noson does when he comes along is he takes these principles and he says, okay, I'm going to show you how you can apply these principles with the mitzvos that you're already doing. And you can apply the concepts to these mitzvos in such a significant way as to totally change your perspective and connection to these mitzvos. It's unbelievably beautiful. I've never been so excited about something as I am about understanding these processes, these principles, and Rebbe Zal's message, or Noson's messages. It's really unbelievable. Baruch Hashem. Okay. Tess. And this that we said about taking the light, formatting it, all of the above, that's relevant during all year long. All year long, this is what we're trying to do. Capture that light, make it into something, direct it to be beneficial. with the greatest kelim that we can create. And when we don't have kelim that may be very good at that moment, or whatever it is, we ask Hashem to send us the light in a pre-formatted state so we can still benefit and grow from it. So all of this happens during the year, during the course of the year. We're endeavoring always to format the light into a blessing, through Torah and mitzvos. But now, at the time that Klal Yisrael came out of Mitzrayim, because these halachos, even though they apply to a million other venues, they are learned in Hilchos Pesach. So all of this, at the time of Yetzias Mitzrayim, Kabbalastic Torah, excuse me, I want to make sure that this is the next page. Here, 1 second. Just want to make sure that I don't. Okay, it is. It was the next page. I'll just start the sentence again so it flows. All that we're discussing is what happens during the course of the year. That we're constantly trying to format this light into a blessing. Through the Torah and the mitzvahs, the Torah that we learn and the mitzvahs that we do. I forgot the word kodem, and that's why it didn't make sense to me. But now, at the time of the Bnei Yisrael, we're engaged in the process of being extracted from Mitzrayim, kodem matan Torah, before Kabbalas HaTorah, before the receiving of the Torah. And they did not yet have the capacity to be mashlim, to repair, to fix, to complete their kelim by themselves. Machmas tubas Mitzrayim, because they had just been exposed for many generations to the impurities of Mitzrayim. And again, I like to translate the word tuma as not just impurity, but impurity with the notion that the tuma represents distance from kedusha, from holiness, from Hashem. So being exposed to this prevented us from initially fixing and repairing our kelim. Therefore, we weren't allowed to eat chametz, which is something that's already taken form. That is, meaning that if we had been able to eat chametz at the time when we came out of Mitzrayim, and we had bad kelim because of what we had been exposed to and what we had all the travails that we had undergone, then that food that we ate, that bread that we would eat in a state of chametz, would take a negative form for us at that time, because we didn't have the ability yet, because we hadn't received the Torah yet, in order to fix our kelim, our vessels into which this bracha could go. According to the extent of the repair or the wholesomeness of our kelim, because the Mitzrim had a stronghold on our spiritual soul, our souls at that time. They told us where to go, what to do, how long we were supposed to do it. We had no time to work on developing ourselves spiritually. And to be able to format the light, chas v'shalom, lahefech, and to format the light to the opposite. So in other words, by overwhelming us with shibud Mitzrayim, with the servitude, we were unable to work on repairing our inner kelim and being able to receive Hashem's bracha and have a kli, have a vessel with which to hold it. And we hadn't gotten the Torah yet either, so we didn't even have direction of how to do that. Therefore, chametz asor b'val yirah or b'val yimatzeh. Therefore, chametz, yes, we have a mitzvah to not eat chametz. Reb Noson is giving a deep, deep explanation as to why, and that is that chametz represents something that's taking form, like the dough when it's rising, it takes the form of whatever kli it's in, right? So as a result of that, if the kli is full of holes or it's dirty or whatever, it's going to have a great impact on that isa, on that dough. We don't want the dough to rise because then it'll be negative for that dough. So basically what we're saying is, Reb Noson is giving a deep explanation as to why we were eating matzah, why we had to eat matzah. And the reason he's giving is that we're truncating, in a sense, we're stopping the rising process at a time before it has a chance to take on the shape of the kli, because we don't want that yet. Because then the chametz that we would eat would, God forbid, be a curse, because again, our kelim are not holy enough. We're not whole or wholesome enough to hold that bracha. Now, came on a matzah. We were compelled, we had to eat matzah, which represents chipazon, hurriedness. So, yes, the Torah tells us they didn't have time to let the dough rise. I always ask the question of, well, why couldn't they have made the dough the night before and had it ready? And if that wasn't the night of the Yosiyah, fine, make a new dough the next night. So they could always have a bread ready to go. Why not? So there's something intrinsic about the notion of eating specifically matzah that was important for them, those who were going through that Yetzias Mitzrayim experience. And what was intrinsic to that experience and to their eating only matzah was that Hashem did not want them eating chametz, because chametz represents something that is taking form in this world. And if they were not ready to receive it, then Hashem said, I'm going to give it to you in a finished product. I'm going to give you the dough. Stop that process as soon as you're able to, and put it in the oven, and it'll be perfect just the way it is. But if you let it start to rise in that bowl or that vessel that you have, it could, God forbid, be a detriment. And don't wait. They did not wait until that light started to take form down here. They drew down the light from above in its purest sense, grabbed it in matzah, and then stopped the process. Stop the show. It's almost like locking it in, like a mortgage rate. You want to lock it in as soon as you can, right? So in a similar sense, they grabbed the light and they locked it in by making matzah right away. So it wasn't only just that they didn't have time, it's that the concept of chipazon, of hurriedness, is associated with what we needed to do for our own benefit at that time. We needed to be ingesting something that was made with chipazon, with hurriedness. Bechinas, lost my place. We didn't wait till it took form down here, the light. We took something that was already formatted into a bracha from above. And this is what we're hearkening back to, something we discussed very much in the beginning, which was what Bilam said to Balak. I went to find the undifferentiated light that he could then format into his own terrible, miserable kalim, and then, God forbid, do something negative. But he explained to Balak, I wasn't able to get that light this time. I got the already finished product, and that finished product says, Ma tovu halacha Yaakov, what a wonderful nation this is. And I had to give them the bracha. Zeh bechinas matzah. And this is the idea of matzah that's baked right away before it reaches the state of chimutz, which is synonymous with taking form in this world, which is something filling a kli. Again, conceptually speaking, and spiritually speaking, which is something that takes form down here below. That now, now it's being formatted from above in the aspect of a bracha, and this is why we bake matzah right away, and that's why the Klal Yisrael had to eat only matzah at that time. And I think we're going to stop here for this evening, and because we're starting a new topic, and it's related also to Pesach. But again, even though it's related to Pesach, and we've been done with Pesach, I understand that. But you see that we're only using Pesach as the origin, the source code. That really all of these lessons are so incredibly applicable to everyday Yiddishkeit all year long, on a principally speaking, applying these principles in a practical way to our daily Yiddishkeit. So if anybody has any questions, you should always feel free, or comments, or need clarification or want clarification, please send me an email. And it's my pleasure to do my best to again, my goal is not so much to give a shiur, because there are plenty of people out there who give amazingly wonderful shiurim. My goal is to do my best to, with Hashem's help, to make Reb Noson's lessons and Rebbe Nachman's lessons accessible to anybody that I can. Teresa, thank you for asking. I'll put my email down here, but it's also on the website under Contact the Instructor. Let's see if I can read this. It's kind of small. Okay, there we go. It's my name, Eliyahu, pretty simple, at Gmail. So yeah, so I'd love to hear from some of you or all of you if you have any questions and comments. And if not, then thank you for joining me. And I very, very much look forward to continuing this discussion next week on Willing. So I wish you all good Shabbos, and Baruch Hashem, thank you very much for joining me. Good night.